Have you ever been the child of someone so famous, so legendary, that people expect you to either cure cancer or overthrow a government just to live up to their name? No? Well, Rosa Burger doesn't have that luxury. Imagine growing up with parents who aren't worried about what's for dinner, but whether they'll be in prison for dinner again. This is Burger's Daughter by Nadine Gordimer, a book that practically dares you to read it without feeling both drained and enlightened.
I accept your challenge.
Now I'll warn you, this is not a light, breezy read you can skim while sipping iced coffee. No, Gordimer's prose makes you feel the crushing weight of apartheid-era South Africa, the desolation, the suffocating tension, and the sense of being utterly trapped in a fight bigger than your own life. And somehow she does it without drowning you in adjectives or flowery language. The pain is just there, quietly pulsing between every line. But let me tell you the story. Our heroine, Rosa Burger, is the daughter of Lionel Burger, a white revolutionary who didn't just talk the talk, but actually walk the walk, and right into a life sentence in prison. This man was so committed to fighting the monstrous apartheid system that he paid for it with his life. Rosa's mother, Kathy, was cut from the same cloth, standing steadfast beside Lionel, no matter the cost. Rosa's childhood home wasn't your typical South African household of the time. Forget the strict racial barriers outside. Inside the Burger house, blacks and whites mingled freely, plotting, debating, and living as if apartheid didn't exist. It was a bubble of resistance, but one that came with its share of grief. The Burgers endured the death of a young son, betrayals from those they trusted, and relentless harassment from the state. Even as a child, Rosa instinctively understood what her parents were doing and why. She wasn't indoctrinated, it was simply her reality. She grew up knowing that her family name was not just a name, it was a battle cry. This first part of the book is told through Rosa's first-person narrative, addressed to Conrad, a man she once had a brief affair with. Her voice is reflective and deeply personal. She recalls how, while her parents were alive, she felt shielded from the full force of the state's wrath, even participating in some of their underground activities. But life wasn't without its cruel separations. For instance, Rosa grew up alongside Baasie, the son of her father's black comrade. They were inseparable as children, but apartheid's brutal laws meant that once they hit a certain age, they couldn't even go to the same schools. That separation, imposed by a cold, hateful system, would come back to haunt Rosa years later in the most unexpected way. When her father dies in prison and her mother succumbs to illness, Rosa is left completely unmoored. The family home, which was once a hub of resistance and warmth, is sold. Rosa drifts from place to place, just trying to find where she belongs. She works as a physiotherapist, but with both her parents gone, the legacy of their struggle now rests squarely on her shoulders. Enter Part 2. Rosa decides to leave South Africa and travel to Europe, specifically France. This section is told as a kind of letter or monologue directed to her father's biographer. Here, Rosa's struggle isn't just about apartheid anymore. It's about figuring out who she is, apart from being Lionel Burger's daughter. In France, she meets Lionel's first wife, who brings with her a mix of nostalgia and, some unresolved family history. Rosa also has an affair with a married man, a doctoral student, because, apparently every revolutionary needs a bit of Parisian romance. But this relationship isn't the turning point of her journey. The defining moment arrives when she attends a program organized by liberal activists and bumps, quite literally, into Baasie, her childhood friend.
How are you doing?
And let me tell you, this reunion is no warm hug and happy tears. Baasie is now a hardened man, forged by the brutal realities of life as a black South African under apartheid. He looks at Rosa, not as a childhood friend, but as a symbol of white privilege, even if she spent her entire life fighting against it. Baasie accuses Rosa of exploiting her father's death, of using his martyrdom as a platform for her own recognition. To him, Lionel Burger's imprisonment and death might be tragic, but it's hardly unique. Countless Black South Africans have suffered and died in far greater numbers, and the world barely blinked. Why is it, Baasie demands, that the suffering of one white man gets international attention while the daily suffering of millions of Blacks goes unnoticed? The accusation cuts deep. Rosa, defensive and furious, fires back, recounting all that her family has sacrificed. But the confrontation shakes her to her core. For all her attempts to distance herself from her father's political shadow, Rosa realizes that she can't escape it. It defines her, whether she wants it to or not.
Shut the front door.
And so, Rosa returns to South Africa. She picks up her old work as a physiotherapist, but the ghosts of her family's political legacy follow her everywhere. Her father's name, Burger, is like a neon sign announcing her allegiance to the anti-apartheid cause. The year is 1976, the year of the Soweto Uprising. The streets are teeming with defiance, and the police are meeting it with brutal force. Broken bones, bloodied faces, and shattered lives fill the air with the taste of despair. Rosa, drawn inexorably into the struggle, finds herself unable to remain on the sidelines. It's almost inevitable that she's arrested. Her crime? Well, daring to stand up for the same ideals that her father died for. She's charged with supporting the African National Congress and inciting revolt. In her moments of fear and solitude, she calls out to her father, not as a political icon, but as the man who shaped her entire life. The book I've been talking about is, of course, Burger's Daughter by Nadine Gordimer. If you're ready for a novel that will both frustrate and inspire you, this is it. What makes Burger's Daughter so powerful is how Gordimer tackles the complicated question of what it means to be a good white South African during apartheid. Can someone who benefits from an oppressive system ever truly claim a clean conscience? Gordimer doesn't offer easy answers. Instead, she shows us the burden of identity, the sins of the fathers, as it were, haunting the next generation. There's also the theme of childhood lost to politics. Rosa never really had a chance to just be a child. Her life was scripted by the struggle before she even understood what that meant. And then there's the uncomfortable question of whose suffering the world chooses to recognize. Baasie's accusation still stings because it's true. The world often only wakes up when the oppressed person happens to be white. Nadine Gordimer knew what she was writing about. Born in South Africa in 1923, she lived through apartheid and wasn't afraid to speak out against it. Her works frequently explore race, politics, and morality in ways that feel raw and unflinching. Gordimer won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1991, and Burger's Daughter, published in 1979, remains one of her most celebrated novels. In fact, it was banned in South Africa shortly after its publication. Proof that Gordimer wasn't just writing stories. She was challenging systems. So, what do I think of Burger's Daughter? Honestly, it's not an easy book. Gordimer doesn't hold your hand. The prose can feel dense, even heavy, but that's because she's not sugarcoating anything. You feel the weight of apartheid in every sentence. You feel Rosa's confusion, her anger, her sense of being trapped between two worlds. Too white to ever fully belong to the oppressed, but too morally awake to stand with the oppressors. This is the kind of book that doesn't just tell a story. It demands you confront uncomfortable truths. And while it's challenging, I'd say it's essential reading. It's a documentation of a period that must never be forgotten. A reminder of what happens when injustice becomes law and resistance becomes a way of life. Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're interested in diving deeper into this book, I've left some links down in the description. You can use it to grab yourself a copy and keep the adventure going. And if you're in the mood for more great reads, don't go just yet. Click on one of the videos popping up right now that I think you'll love. And don't forget to give this review a like, leave a comment, or even subscribe if you'd like to see more. Every bit of support helps us grow this little community of book lovers. See you in the next one.